also, and letting more people in. And all right, I don't want to see me on my screen. So there we go. Welcome everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. We're honored to present this artist talk between Kendra Larson and Richard Speer. Kendra has a online solo exhibition right now through Shoebox Projects, which is our alternative art space currently online. If you're not familiar with Shoebox Projects, we started as an alternative gallery space here at the Brewery Artist Lofts in downtown Los Angeles. It's been a little over 4 years now. I started out doing artist residencies where I would invite artists to come in for 3 weeks, use the space as studio space, and then have a show at the end of the work that they created. And within that time, we also had some group shows and things like that in between. And then right before the pandemic, we actually went on hiatus. And then during the pandemic, I wanted to bring it back as an online gallery as a way to support artists and to help artists show work that they haven't shown before or think about how they're presenting work differently. And so that leads us to Kendra, which I'm very honored to show this body of work. When we first talked about the work that Kendra was going to show, Kendra is so prolific. We had a lot of work to go through. We decided to go to present work based off of her catalog, which I have right here. The work that was presented in the catalog, and then just kind of go from there. And you can go to the website, and I'll post a link in chat in just a few minutes, and you can purchase the catalog. So there is a link there that takes you directly to purchase the catalog. It's beautiful. I highly recommend it. And there is an essay by Richard Speer, who is an art critic, curator. You do so much in the art world. I mean, a huge supporter of artists and galleries. I mean, it's an honor to have you here talking with Kendra also.
It's so sweet. Thank you very much. It's my honor.
Welcome. You're welcome. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to the two of you and kind of let you go for it. Again, thank you so much, both of you, for being here.
My pleasure. I'm very pleased to be here. And I was so honored that Kendra invited me to write the essay for this book. I am temperamentally drawn to work that is at the intersection of eye candy and the sublime. That sounds kind of psychedelic, doesn't it? I mean, where something that's beautiful and intriguing meets something that is mystical and that has the supposition of a deeper intellectual or spiritual meaning. So for that reason, I've been very drawn to Kendra's work for quite a while now. And so it was so interesting. It was about 9 months or a year ago, Kendra, when we first started doing the interviews.
About June, I think, last year.
Yeah. So it was just really fun getting to know you more and to getting to know more about your background. And what I tried to get through in the essay was the intersection of your biography with your ideas with the product that happens on the picture plane. And the title of this show is the same thing as the title of the book, which is Otherworldly Light. And I love that. It's a phrase that you, Kendra, came up with when we were chatting. And I don't know whether we want to feel free whenever you want to show some pictures or not. But, your work so often, not always, but so often features light sources such as solar flares or fireworks or forest fire or the northern lights or the twinkling starlight above that has this kind of ethereal preternatural quality. And it's pretty to look at, but also spooky sometimes. And I'm wondering if you could tell me, why you are so drawn to depicting over the course of your career this kind of Otherworldly Light, as you coined it?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for being here and for the lovely essay and for that cooperation or collaboration for the book. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You are an amazing writer, and you put so many of my ideas into words. And thank you everyone for being here. I think what you'll find out is that I am not very good with words. And that's why I think that's why it was a nice collaboration to make this book. And I also, just before I forget, I want to say thank you to Shoebox because and Christine. This has been a fun road to do this show, and you are amazing people to work with. I'm gonna share the screen with you as I answer your question. So yeah, light. This is the show. Okay. So, I think that my fascination with light comes from a love of art history, specifically painting history, where light and the lack of light has played a significant role in, and it's a symbol of hope in a way, or a lack of hope. And I'm really kind of just interested in that symbolism. Maybe it also stems from my fascination with visual perception, and how we need light to decipher color. Depicting light is also an exciting challenge for me. In other words, taking a physical, heavy, goopy thing like paint, and transforming it into something that's light and weightless and ephemeral. Like light is it's just a fun challenge, painterly challenge. And then as far as the otherworldly aspect of light that I explore, I have always enjoyed mysteries. And I'm just gonna keep going, just like running through these paintings. If y'all want me to stop, just let me know. But yeah, I've always enjoyed mysteries and horror movies. And it feels good to live in a world where something can be both enchantingly beautiful, but also a little spooky or fearsome or uncanny at the same time. And yes. I guess I like bringing that strange combination into the world.
Yeah, when I called it preternatural, that kind of indicates that there's something outside the realm of normal experience. It's sort of like superhuman or supernatural or something. And it's funny, isn't it, when we think of, you mentioned horror movies, when we watch those, often it is the treatment of light that lets you know that something out of the ordinary is going to happen. Like, we all think of like the Vincent Price movies, right? Where all you have to do is get the light source and put it underneath your face, right? And suddenly that little bit of a change in position in the light suddenly makes something really macabre and scary is going to happen.
Right, yeah, or alien spaceships always have that ray of light coming down from them first.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and one of your paintings, I don't tell me if it's in the show or not. It always reminded me of it. It's a car going through some big Wagnerian forest, and there's just this one sort of lone beam shining out. I don't know, is it a Volkswagen and it always reminds me of a scene in The Shining where the snowcat is going up to rescue Wendy and Danny, from Jack Torrance. And, that one lonely beam in this huge snowbank is just, you feel the vulnerability of this individual. And I felt that in the painting that I'm talking about, of the car going through the woods at nighttime.
Yeah, I don't think that one's in the show, but it's in the book. And it's, yeah, I think this painting that I have up now kind of touches on some of the same feelings of a little bit of loneliness, a little bit of, yeah, slight doom on the horizon.
Yes. Well,
but
those
also
lights
freedom.
that are up there in the mountains, I take it that they're like lights in a homes, but yet they look like spooky eyes that are looking down on you from somewhere evil.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Can I interrupt for just 1 second? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, a technical thing. Kendra, do you mind actually turning on the video on your phone? Since you have the microphone on your phone, when you talk, it doesn't have your video up. It's only it says my phone. So that way people can see you.
Okay, so I go, okay. Yeah, y'all,
There we go.
I have the internet in my studio, but for some reason Zoom doesn't work that well sometimes. So does that look okay?
Yeah, I think it's that way we can at least see you.
Okay, cool. And I don't know if I could change my name on my phone, but
that doesn't matter, you're fine.
Oh, I think
Go ahead and keep going. Nobody else has a name.
Okay, cool. Oh, well, get there.
This painting that we're looking at right now, was that based on a photograph that you took or that you saw somewhere, or is it just from inside your head?
So in this one, I was going through this phase where I was questioning like how important it was to work from specific locations and how combining found images of places could possibly speak to a more universal understanding of place. And so for this one, I found multiple images and collaged them together, and then I painted from the collage. So it was kind of a way for me to aim to make something more universal, but also a unique way of sketching beforehand. And I'm happy to switch around too. So if you need, sorry, if you need me to switch it to a different painting, I'm happy to do that. But what were you going to say? Sorry, Richard.
Oh, just that I think that this collage captures the duality that you were talking about, because it looks like a burst of fireworks above a lake or a harbor on top. So we get that sort of exultance that we get from fireworks and celebratory. And yet down below, we've got this motorcycle looking very lonely and forlorn at this ominous whatever is coming ahead. So it's the opposite. It's the top is celebration, the bottom is dread. And I think you really captured that duality of what lack or what lack of light or light can bring.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
I don't want to put words in your mouth. Although that's my job, actually.
I mean, there's this painting there's a nostalgia to this painting too, because it reminds me, the top part of it reminds me of Madison, Wisconsin. And so in a way it's a little nostalgic for me personally. It's also feels like summertime because of the fireworks, but then also, motorcycles, don't necessarily ride around on a motorcycle in the winter time. So it has a certain kind of, like you said, little ominous, little celebratory, but also just a little bit like seeped in memory and nostalgia, kind of romanticizing that summer feel a little bit.
Yes. Well, we always do think, when I think about fireworks, I remember seeing them for the first times when I was a kid, and where I was, which happened to be Disney World in Florida. And I think fireworks are just so extraordinary that they make an impression on us that lasts, and that therefore when we see them today, we're almost in a time warp, which plays into the nostalgia that you're talking about.
Totally. And it kind of connects with your first question too, in the sense of light. I don't know if anybody's had this experience when you're looking at fireworks, and the contrast between the light and the dark sky is so stunning that for that split second, it feels like it could be just inches from your face. That moment where the depth perception is questioned is just, I don't know if it's, I mean, I'm kind of guessing that the kids might have that experience more often than us adults. That like that little bit of letting reality go a little bit in order to let that imagination and that wonder in for just a second. And anyway, so I was thinking about that when that's part of the reason I started painting fireworks, I think, was that moment of questioning my perception, and also the magic of what light can do.
Yes. Well, and you brought up the fact that, you know, you got your MFA at University of Wisconsin in Madison.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that when you were out there, you got kind of homesick for the Pacific Northwest. And I think it kind of ties in with another question I wanted to ask you, which is, you know, in terms of a sense of place, not just of the light itself, but where the light is happening. You know, so many of your works are landscapes that happen in the deep, dark woods. You know, since we live here in Portland, Oregon, I look at the Columbia River Gorge or some of the old growth Douglas fir forests, and I see the Pacific Northwest. I know you're from Salem area, Willamette River Valley too, but these are not necessarily specific portraits of Oregon. You know, there could be Middle Earth, it could be, you know, the Black Forest in Germany. So I'm wondering about that. And if you could take me back to this time when you were away in the flatlands of Wisconsin, kind of daydreaming for being back home. And I think it sort of shifted the focus of what the work was you were doing in Madison at the time.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I loved my time in the Midwest. People there are kind and generous, and the 6 feet of snow was kind of a cool change of pace. But yeah, you're right. It was very flat. I miss the hills. Actually, in fact, you know, if you look right outside this door here, there's a Mount Tabor right there, and you can see Mount Hood. I'm basically surrounded by mountains and hills from here. But I miss that. I miss the crisp Oregon air and all the green. And in Madison, my work became really nostalgic. And uh-oh, can you see me okay, everyone? My internet just had a moment. Okay.
There you are.
What? But yeah, my work became really nostalgic, and I became kind of like interested in romanticism because of that, and the romantic for the mountains, and thinking about my place within that landscape, and I guess the psychology of place kind of started to really come into my work. I took some notes here, and you know, the character of a place and its power to embody a whole catalog of memories, emotions, stories, hopes, and fears. That's really what I became really interested in how a place can embody all of that. And, you know, even though it has taken a slight twists and turns since I've moved back to Oregon, that complexity of place has kept my attention ever since.
What twists and turns are you talking about?
Well, I'm not really nostalgic anymore necessarily because I'm here, so it's a different kind of feel.
Yeah. Oh, that reminds me though. I'm probably going to misquote this, but there's a Japanese proverb that says, "Though I am in Kyoto, I long for Kyoto."
Yeah, you definitely see things differently, I guess, and my sense of what home meant was different when I was there. Yeah, I think
Is
the
there any
West
other
Coast
kind of
is-
landscape that you are really drawn to? I mean, do you like the desert? Do you like, you know, tundra?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I like them all, and I guess mean, I've done paintings of all the parts of Oregon, and Oregon kind of has a lot of different kinds of landscapes. I guess maybe it is just interested in that, in trying to capture the character of a place, but also exploring my sense of home. I think that Oregon and, the West Coast, it's pretty special out here. And I'm kind of going off the rails. Oh yeah, you asked me about the twists and turns in Oregon. So I did have that series where I was kind of more interested, questioning how important it was to be depicting specific places, and I was trying to piece together photos and found images and creating unrealistic kind of amalgamation type places. And that was a fun experience for me. I don't know how successful I was in capturing that universality that I was thinking about, but it was definitely a fun process and a unique way of approaching sketching and thinking about how images of place come into our lives. I mean, well, maybe I'll save that for another question, but just, I often think of how we interact with place. Like, I don't go hiking every weekend. I go hiking a lot, but I don't go hiking every weekend. So my sense of wilderness and place is definitely influenced by media, other people's paintings, books, social media. All of that really has a place in the psyche of what home and what place means.
I think it's such an interesting question, because I also have a very deeply felt sense of place. And, I was born in Florida, and I spent a lot of my early years there. And then I worked in the South a lot when I was working in broadcasting. And I really wanted, after a certain point, I felt I'd had enough of the South, and I wanted to get out of it. I wanted to cross the Mississippi, cross the Rockies, and get out west. And there was that yearning, whether it be the desert Southwest or whether it be the Pacific Northwest. I daydreamed. I wanted to see the contour of a mountain cut the sky. But it's funny, whenever, as much as I love it here, and I still love skiing and being in the mountains, whenever I go back to Florida, there is something that very primal about it. And I'm like, well, this is home. And whether it be the humidity on your body, whether it be the flora and the fauna, and the birds, and whatever, it's something that grabs you in a deep place, and you identify with it almost in your blood. And how to explain that power in words is so difficult. I think you either have to be there or to allude to it in artwork, such as you do. And I think you do a beautiful job of it.
Thank you.
You're showing this picture of a cave here. This is a glowworm cave, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tell us about that, because you were in New Zealand, as I've been also and seen the glowworms. People may not know about that.
Yeah. So in the North Island of New Zealand, there's a cave where you could go spelunking? And
Spelunking.
yeah, and you could float down the creek, and above you there's all these glowworms. And so when you have your helmet light off, it looks like the night sky, it's really interesting, because you know that you are like 20 feet below the ground, but it so looked like the night sky. It was so believable that it was the night sky. And then you turn your headlamp on, and all of a sudden there are all these worms that are like dripping from the ceiling, like really close to your face. And they glow with this luminosity, this luminescence, to trick flies into thinking that that's a way out of the cave, and then they eat them. But I was but I was really fascinated with that moment, that these creatures also look like the vast universe, that little moment where your mind is kind of tricking you. And this in this painting is kind of touching on that. Another one of my paintings kind of does that more, but this definitely touches on that idea.
Well, for sure. And this idea of the macrocosm of this worm, and actually I think they're larvae of some kind. The Kiwis corrected me that even though they're called glowworms, technically they're not worms. But who cares, right?
Right.
The macrocosm of that turns into the cosmos itself, the microcosm, I mean. And so it's also you think you're looking at the vault of heaven, but it's really something as mundane and kind of gross as a worm. And I think you're talking about that moment when we realize that what we have been looking at is not what we think we have been looking at.
Yeah.
Well, that since we're talking about worms and sort of lowly creatures, you also make a point in your work, and I'm glad we're looking at that right now, of, first you look at that and you think that you're looking at butterflies, but we're not actually. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so this is, gosh, I don't even remember where it came from. Okay, so early in 2020, I started painting moths, and I'm not really sure. I don't know if you could hear that helicopter going overhead, but I'm not really sure where it came from. But so sorry, I had a teacher in school that would always tell me, his name was R.B. Smith, and he would always tell me, just paint what you want to paint and then figure out what it means later. And so I had this urge, I don't really know where it came from, to paint moths into my landscapes. And I've had this time to think about it. And really, I've come to this understanding that moths are, complex. They're formally and conceptually fraught. They're a metaphor for night and death, hope and transformation. They're magical mythology. I wrote in my notes, their magical mythology is highlighted in their names: witch moth, death mask moth, etc. And I love the idea that some cultures see moths as embodying the loved ones past. Sorry, my dog just opened my door. I don't know if you saw that. And I also wrote, humbled by their flamboyant cousin, the butterfly, the moth seems to know about the cosmos and are well positioned to hold their secrets close. So on the one hand, I see, these creatures as spiritual beings, symbols for these really large, difficult ideas. But on the other hand, I see them as the figure in the painting. Like if you think of paintings like Caspar David Friedrich, there's often a figure in the foreground, and we as a viewer, we see ourselves in that figure, and we can enter the painting through that figure. And so in a way, I see these moths as also being a stand-in for the viewer, someone that they can relate to or also see themselves in.
Uh-huh. Well, yeah, I like the contrast that you draw between the moth and the butterfly. Sort of the butterfly gets to be the peacock, right? And maybe the moth is just the chicken in the hen yard or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not an entomologist by any stretch of the imagination, and I do not know if there are are there behavioral differences between butterflies and moths? Like we always talk about, the moth drawn to the flame. Well, will a butterfly go to a flame too? I have no idea.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you always think of butterflies going to flowers. They come out in daytime. Their wings are positioned differently, so they fly differently. I mean, moths come out at night. They have they seem hardier to me and furrier. Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, actually, that I don't know if I should say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. the more that I think about it, the more I see the moths as like women in my life. Like my great grandmother was she was a really cool lady. She would never like edit what she said. She was a little bit gruff. She'd always be watching baseball, and she was just a cool lady, easy to talk to. She wasn't worried about being a butterfly. She was, she was happy with the things that matter. And I think maybe that's, but I'm just thinking off the cuff. I might feel differently about these tomorrow, but.
This was your great grandmother or your grandmother?
Kind of a lot of the women in my life, really.
Yeah, I mean, but the one you were just talking about was.
That was my great grandmother, Margaret. Yeah, she was.
Well, that's great. Isn't it lovely to have had the experience of knowing and then remembering your great grandparents? I mean, so many people, a lot of people, their grandparents are dead, but before they're even born. And I just was always very grateful that I knew, I guess I have memories of all four of my great grandparents. So it's just kind of a special thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and even if you haven't met your grandparents or people in your family, like maybe they have come back to you in the form of a moth,
Yeah, I like that. I like the hardiness, the non-showboating aspect of it. Here I see we're looking out. Our point of view is looking, and the one above that, we're looking out of a cave. So the moths are maybe emerging from the cave into the night to go eat whatever they're going to eat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like that a lot. That's a really spooky angle there. I mean, the subjective point of view is, wow, I like that.
Thank you. Yeah. It was definitely fun to paint too.
Yeah, I like how you outline the trees are kind of almost backlit by another kind of light source that we can't tell what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. That's gorgeous. Do you do any? I'm trying to remember. Do you do any other animals in your paintings?
I've tried it here and there, but not so much, really. Lately, I have been putting people in very small, tiny. I wonder if there's one in this. This show looks so good, Christine. Thank you. Here's one with people in it.
Oh yeah.
I've started to do that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Is this Iceland? Is this Reykjavik?
Oops, I'm sorry. Let's go back to it. There you go. There's a. This I think so. I think it is. It was from a found photo, but I think it might have been Iceland. Yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but it reminds me. I think, what do they call it? The blue grotto or the blue.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah, I'd love to go to it. I went to some hot springs up in Alaska that reminded me of this a lot. There's a place called Chena Hot Springs that's east of Fairbanks. That is, it's like it's bigger than like 4 swimming pools, and you can swim in it, but it's all hot spring. It's
cool.
Really cool, yeah.
Oh, that's neat. I know there's a lot of really neat hot springs here in Oregon too. Like I'm thinking about, well, Bad Knee, of course, is amazing. Cougar. Yeah.
That's right. Well, okay, as we're scrolling through this, and I agree, it's a great lineup, I'm noticing a difference between, as we're seeing here, the grayscale works and these kind of very subtly chromatic and sometimes more bold other works. When I see the grayscale, it makes me think of a newspaper, of newsprint, or maybe an old National Geographic or Encyclopedia Britannica entry or something. And I'm wondering, could you tell me, I don't think we covered this when I interviewed you for the book, but, so what's up with that? Like, are you giving yourself a certain challenge, or is there a certain symbolic change that you're trying to denote when we see the grayscale works versus the color?
Hmm. Well, how do I answer that? I guess for me, color is emotional. It's strongly tied to emotion and joy and I wrote all these notes and now I'm not reading them, but color in my mind is strongly tied to emotion and can drive the feeling of a painting. Without color, you are drawn into the other visual elements. In a way, I see achromatic paintings or grayscale paintings as telling a story, but in a way leaving the color for the viewer to kind of add for themselves. Sometimes in my work, I also see black and white as relating more to memory than a specific time and place. I think color can kind of set something in a specific time and place. This is a horrible example, but like, you know, when you're walking through the museum and you could just see like the early 80s geometric abstraction, like there's a specific color palette that a lot of people used, and it's not bad, but it definitely says that time frame. Right. And so I think I tend to do mostly black and white, a lot of black and white at least, because of just not wanting to set it in a specific time, I guess. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think, you know, the minute you see a sepia toned photograph, you know you're probably looking at something from the late 1800s. Mm-hmm. You know, we're in the Wild West or wherever, and you know, just that color differential makes such a big instantaneous difference in our, you know, perception of what we're looking at. Mm-hmm. Well, and what are we looking at here? Are these plants in the foreground or in the back? What is this? I obviously we're seeing trees, but what are those fruits up there? Is that persimmons or kiwis or what is that?
This painting is just old enough that I'm like have to refresh myself. So this is from 2016, and this is back when I was doing those kind of collaged sketches. Really like trying to break away from just focusing on specific places and kind of more getting together like amalgamation of images. And so this is a combination of photos that I've found in National Geographic's and the Hubble telescope calendar. They had a calendar series that they put out with a really cool like space photographs, and then garden magazines. So I pieced together this scene from found photos, and then I painted the scene. And the fruit at the top, I like that you read them as fruit or like persimmons, but they were from a photograph of some different moons, I think, or like some sort of graphic, like moon cycle type graph. And I kind of was going for feel of late spring, perhaps someone's backyard, mm-hmm. That feeling of walking in with, you know, to meet someone for a happy hour or something, and connecting with them mm-hmm. outside of that.
Are these plants then that the white sort of in the foreground?
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, and I like how ridiculously big they are too. Like I like that about painting. How it doesn't have to be a real space. You can really, they could be really playful and wonderful and silly. I think that's part of the beauty of painting. It's not a photograph. It's a place that I'm kind of piecing together and having fun with and experimenting with. You know, a lot of the decisions I make in the studio too are from experiments and from playing. I think maybe that's partly why it's kind of hard for me to talk sometimes about my work, is because a lot of it is it comes from a world of like no words in a way.
Right. Well, yeah, and then you get somebody asking you a very literal question, like what I'm asking you. Are those persimmons? What kind of plants are they? I think there's a natural tendency. Huh?
I have a persimmon tree in my yard too, so it wouldn't be weird. I mean,
it's funny though, isn't it? Because one thing that art challenges us to do is to not be literal, and yet even people such as myself who yearn for sort of vague transcendentalist, fuzzy non-concepts, I think our natural inclination that it's so maybe impossible to get away from is like, well, what is that? Such and such, you know? So I think part of what you're doing is getting us away from that.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, and you know, I love that idea that good art asks us questions and opens up questions and dialogue and doesn't answer things and creates mystery, right?
Yeah.
And here's another one from that series too.
Okay. Well, and this I'm going to ask you this question again now, but I think that there is a literal referent in this one. You know, we talk about the bliss of transcendent light, but light can also be terrifying, and so a lot of the images that you're using in some of the pieces in this show are forest fires, wildfires, such as we have had in Oregon, and such has plagued the entire West, as well as other parts of the country. Is this? We had a fire. What is it called? The Golden Creek Fire, Eagle Creek Fire, that was in the Columbia River Gorge, burned up huge parcels of land, scarred it for decades, I'm sure. Is that what we're looking at here?
Actually, you know, this was painted in 2015.
Okay. So that was before that happened. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting how the painting, the meaning of the painting changes actually because of that.
Yeah.
Actually, you know, my fascination with fire and really kind of goes back to a residency I did in 2005. Sorry, I don't know where to look. Like, you're on the computer over here and you're over here, so I'm gonna just stay here.
Think of me as a cubist, you know.
Too many. I know. Too many screens. But yeah, so 2005, I did this residency at Caldera, which is near Sisters, Oregon. It's a beautiful area, gorgeous area. But it had been recently hit by the Biscuit Fire. I think it was like in 2003, and it snowed while I was there. So this beautiful white, you know, new fallen snow next to the rich, like black charred, beautiful in their own way, beautiful charred trees was really stunning. And you know, the quiet of that space reminded me how big the forest was and how small I was, and reminded me of the power of nature. And I guess I don't know, I just saw like fire as part of that power. And you know, yes, it's completely devastating and destructive and scary. But it was also part of a larger life cycle of the forest. You think of the cones of the scrub and lodgepole pines, how they have to have fire in order for the pine cones to open up. So it's, you know, fire is part of that. And so even though it's scary, I kind of started to see a larger power behind it. And my notes, what did I write? Oh, also the drama. I love the challenge of trying to capture the drama and grandeur of nature. And, you know, also like I saw the smoke, I felt the smoke, I saw the fires. Like, I know it was so scary, and seeing people's homes devastated, that's so awful. And I think painting fire, my recent paintings of fire, that is, I think doing that has also helped me kind of come to terms with what's happening. Kind of not come to terms, but cope with it in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's a complex thing, and I like that. I mean, going back to what we were talking about, light, like capturing light with paint is also just a fun challenge.
Oh yeah, yeah, and a daunting one too.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking about nostalgia, and I think that your imagery of these deer bounding away from the fire will probably put many people in mind of the movie Bambi, you know, the Disney film Bambi, where you know, I think the mother deer dies in the fire, doesn't she? I haven't watched it in a long time, but that's my
spoiler alert, Richard. Spoiler alert. No, not Bambi. Monica. No, you're right. You're right. It's horrible.
You know, another thing that you mentioned about the pine cones, Morel mushrooms, which have a life of their own, obviously, but are also a great part of the culinary arts. In fact, they're my favorite kind of mushroom. And although I have not seen this, I understand that mushroom foragers have a much better chance of finding morels, in particular, in areas that have had forest fires than not. And it just shows you how in a biodiversity, everything creates opportunists who can thrive on other beings' misfortune. Of course, there's a difference from when a bolt of lightning comes out of the sky and sets something on fire, and when it's a kid with a firecracker or somebody flicking a cigarette out of a car. So show me. Here we got almost grayscale, but then you've got this very dramatic orange happening.
Yeah. This is a really new painting, so I'm still living with like what it really is about, but it was done from or it depicts the San Yan Pass and the devastation of the fire. And honestly, that's actually it is black and white. Like the it's like you know, all the ash and charred landscape is black and white. Yeah. Little sidebar. We rented a pontoon on Detroit Lake a week before the fire started. So we were out there enjoying that area and that landscape, and then a week later it was basically just completely devastated. It's just so wild to think that it was, you know, that place has a special place. That place was really special, you know.
Well, speaking of hot springs, I mean, I was always a great fan of Brighton Bush Hot Springs, which is, you know, what, 10 miles up the road from Detroit Lake. And it was, as you know, got really, all of the cabins were destroyed and some of the other structures, which is very sad, but thank goodness they're, you know, redoing it. I wanted to, I don't, you know, I want to make sure we allow time for people to ask questions. I wonder if I could ask you just a broader overarching question, you know, about being an artist during this last year plus of this COVID hell that we've all been enduring. But yet you seem to have been quite prolific during this time. So I was wondering, you know, what your experience of this has been. Has this been therapeutic for you? Has it, you've certainly done well with it in your work in this time.
Yeah, it's I guess I've had it pretty good, honestly. Like, I knock on wood. I can work from home. I teach at PSU, and my husband works from home, so we both have our jobs. And my studio is right here in a garage behind my house. So I got really lucky, I used to have a studio in a warehouse, and that would have been really hard to get to. It would have been hard to social distance. So I'm kind of, before the pandemic, I was kind of, worked alone a lot anyway. So it wasn't too much of a pivot for me. I guess I don't really know.
Well, whatever it was.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know
really
why
worked.
I'm making more. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe so I haven't gotten sick. I haven't lost my job. Like, I think things are really good, but it definitely has impacted how I feel about my life and what's important to me, my priorities. And in a way, my art maybe got pushed forward in my priorities even more. And maybe that's why I made more work. I think the pandemic also got me thinking about connecting with other people and how, artwork can be intimate too. And so in a way, so maybe that's why I started a series of small drawings, really tiny drawings. And I do those regularly. And I know a few other artists that have gone really small with their work. And I think it's maybe connected to that intimacy that's felt, or the relationship of connection, or the idea of connection, maybe through artwork. But I totally interrupted you. What were you saying?
No. I was just saying that I would basically, I'm glad that your experience has been one of increased productivity rather than decreased, and I'm glad that you have been one of the lucky ones. I'm glad for you, for sure. Well, let's see. I think maybe we should take some questions from our audience participants.
There's a couple. Monica just posted a comment. I really like how deliberately you choose to use or not use color. It is really impactful and has a language all its own. Definitely agree with that. Great comment, Monica. And then Daryl posted a question. Please elaborate on art and artists connecting to visions of each and everyone's cycle of life experience.
What was the first part of the question?
Please elaborate on art and artists connecting to visions of each and everyone's cycle of life experience. I don't know, Daryl, if you want to, let me see, unmute and maybe ask the question in person, and so maybe we can understand a little clearer. You should be able to unmute there if you're able to.
There we go. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just, your work is just phenomenal, and I love the, it takes me to, just wanting to be there, and part of your vision of your cycle of life experiences is nature and things that may have been catastrophic. I mean, there's so many different aspects to life. Life is so complex. So I guess I'm wanting your thoughts about how artists often, have their own experiences throughout life, and how their vision towards art or creating work. I mean, what about your experiences with a lot of other people, artists and other people, and their experiences, and how does that influence you? Sorry if it's kind of heavy.
No, it's good. Well, I love art history, and I do have an art podcast with my sister called Art Gab, and so we do interview a lot of artists. And I know, Richard, you know a lot of artists, you've written about a lot of artists, you probably have your own answer for that question. But from what I have learned from other artists is that, yeah, every life experience, whether you mean it to or not, will find its way into your work. And I'm thinking about like someone like Alice Neal, if anybody's familiar with her work, or there was a documentary that was out about her a few years ago now. And, you know, every major thing that happened in her life, like changed the trajectory of her work and the subject matter of her work. And it enriched the depth of the psychology woven into her work. And I don't know if this answers your question, Daryl, at all, but I was also, I applied for a lot of shows and grants and residencies and all that stuff. And I was looking at this one the other day, and it was like, it was looking for artwork that was about summertime and the joy of sunshine. And I was like looking at my work, and even though I have sunshine in my work, I wouldn't say that that's really overtly something, like, I don't think my work fit into that call. So I think maybe to answer your question, like some of my experiences and some experience of people I know have entered my work, but what's in my work is just as powerful as what's not in my work. And what I'm not including is part of this larger conversation too. Richard, did you want to answer Daryl's question for yourself?
I think you did a great job. So no, we're good. Do we have another?
I think that's it for chat. Does anybody else have any questions? And maybe I'll just jump in with a quick question. I know you were talking about earlier, you did show a couple of pieces that included animals, but you also have been creating sculptures. I know it's not included in the show,
Yeah.
but you're doing other work, and those sculptures include animals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you I was gonna say that. Thank you, for reminding me. So I go through these funny phases where I make sculptures, and they usually don't get shown. They're kind of like a secret body of work that I feel like a lot of people have that, right? Artists and writers, we have a secret body of work that may never be shown in public, but definitely influences our studio practice. And so, yeah, I have little painterly animals that are often mixed media, paper mache. They look like they've been playing in paint. That's kind of they're a little messed up. They're a little broken. And I kind of love that about them. Yeah.
Aren't we all?
A little bit broken. And you can see some of those on my website, which is kendralarson.com. And in about a year, they'll be on display in Seattle. So I'll put information on that. Yeah.
Where at?
God, it's so far out.
Yeah.
I don't remember the gallery, but it's with Ashley McLean Emenegger.
I think,
okay.
Yeah, I think the gallery is AMCE Gallery or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm bad with acronyms, so I'll probably mess it up anyway.
Yeah, something like that. It's I think it's a new gallery actually,
Cool.
opening in Seattle. Yeah.
Maybe it'll be the ASMR gallery.
There you
It'll be tingling.
It'll be great. It'll be cool. But yeah, that's definitely something I like. I'm interested in, and just playful, weird animals, doing spooky things. Mm-hmm. I guess that kind of also relates to something else I was thinking about recently. Is that even though this is online, you can still see a lot of the texture of these paintings. They're very physical, and they're goopy, and I love having really thick paint next to really thin washes. That's just something else I was gonna. It's not very deep. Sorry, I should elaborate, but I can't.
I will say that was one thing that I was impressed by when I saw all of the paintings together in your studio. I had not realized, I mean, I had seen some of your shows before, but in there, just totally surrounded by them, and also some of your experimental works, I was very taken with the variety of textures that you were able to muster, from this absolutely gloppy impasto to sometimes don't you use like little pebbles or glitters to very Spartan. So I like the contrast. I like that you're not just a one-trick pony in that regard.
Yeah.
Looks like we got some fresh questions too.
Yeah, and it goes back to that love of paint and how it's not a photo. It's not a computer screen. It lives in the same world as us, and it reminds us of our bodies, and it reminds us of nature and our connection to it. It's like that bridge between the physical world and the, conceptual relationship with images. What was the other question?
Dwayne is asking about the installation process and how that has added to the individual works. I'm not sure if he's referring to your installation work. Dwayne, I don't know if you want to go ahead and ask.
Dwayne.
Well, I looked at the pictures of the installation, I guess, at your gallery, and I was not aware. I'm assuming that Kendra's had some or extensive experience doing installations, and I just was wondering if she had some thoughts about how an installation either adds to the individual pieces or how the individual pieces come together in a larger, more complete environment or whatever.
Like the hang in the gallery, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems more like an installation than an actual than an exhibition.
Well, I do definitely see. I do definitely think of the exhibition. Let me step back. So each painting should stand on its own. Each painting should encompass its own narrative and be solid on its own. But I also do see them as speaking to one another. So, a lot of times when I'm working on a series, I'm working on many paintings at the same time. I don't know if you can see it behind me, but there's I could probably lift it up. There's 20 paintings going on at the same time. And so I do definitely think of how they talk to one another and how if they're installed in the same place, how they're going to lift each other up. And that show, I don't know if maybe you're talking about, I think you went to the Ogden show a few years back with the fireworks, and those definitely each one had its own kind of contribution to the whole, for sure.
Well, before, I mean, when I got this email, there was an attachment or a link to some photographs of you creating this installation piece. It looked like, if that was the gallery, then it looked a lot more than just a few paintings here and there. It wasn't your typical gallery installation like the white box stuff that we're so used to.
Yeah, I have done installations too. So yeah, that's what you saw is
yeah. I didn't know whether that was connected with the shoebox gallery. Is that what we're
no shoebox is they're showing this is actually a show of really recent paintings, and specifically paintings from this catalog that I made with Richard. So it's a really nice little beautiful essay by Richard, and a nice little collection of work from the last 20 years. So this show on shoebox is really taking from that book and really working with the book as kind of a template. But I have done installations, and I think maybe you're seeing at Pacific University, I think it was 2 years ago now.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah. Oh my gosh, time flies. I did a video installation that was, it was very much in the vernacular of painting. So there were these large paintings on hanging black fabric, white paint on black fabric. And then Christopher, my husband, and I developed these stop animations and other films to work with the paintings. So, so yes, it was a three-dimensional installation that you could walk through and interact with, but it was all very painterly. It like, there was the viscosity of paint. There was definitely like the brush strokes and the feeling that you're almost in a painting. So yes, it was an installation, but I can't help but really just love paint.
Me neither. It's pretty damn cool, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. Yeah.
Cool. Are there any other questions from anybody? Or, I mean, this has been really wonderful. I love the depth of the conversation, and yeah, just such a great conversation.
I wonder,
Yeah.
Kendra, I always wonder, Kendra, where your work is heading next. Like how, this is hypothetical, of course, but how far are you going to explore down this path, and where is it going to lead, and where are you going to be 20 years from now? What's your subject matter going to be? Seems like painters, either they go their entire careers sort of doing variations on the same themes, or they're just so eclectic that you can't tell from one decade to the next that it's the same artist. So you really seem to have a consistent thing going on here. And I'll be delighted to see which of those camps you fall into.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm going to definitely keep making work and still try to be, I feel really good when I'm surprised by my own process, surprised by what I do. And yeah, I'm excited to find out where it goes too.
Good. This has been delightful. Thank you for having me participate. And also, Kendra, thanks for having me work on the book with you. It was a pleasure from start to finish.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was wonderful working with you too. And thank you, Christine. You're amazing. And thank you everyone for coming. It was so nice to see you all. I can see you on the screen over here. Hi. Oh my gosh. Thank you everyone for coming. You're amazing.
Yeah, and you can, if you came in late, this was on Facebook Live on Shoebox Arts Facebook. I meant to put it on Shoebox Projects, and yeah, it's on Shoebox Arts. And so you can watch the beginning of it. And again, go and look at the exhibition and buy the catalog. There's a link there. And yeah, no, thank you, Kendra. No, this was a great way to spend a Saturday afternoon. All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, everybody. Good to see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.